Welcome back. In this next dark story, we will be sharing the most haunted places in Missouri. Let's dive in and explore the dark history, demonic, supernatural, and chilling mysteries in the state. Don't forget to like, share, and please subscribe. Share your experience in the comments. Missouri does not reveal its dead easily. They remain hidden beneath old mansions, abandoned prison corridors, forgotten railroad beds, hospital rooms, and isolated houses, surrounded by woods so quiet that even the insects seem afraid to make a sound. This is a state carved by war, disease, executions, family tragedies, and stories that refuse to stay buried. Some of the events you are about to hear are documented history. Others are reported experiences, whispered legends, and paranormal claims repeated by witnesses who walked into these places believing they were alone. But Missouri has a way of changing people who wander too far into the darkness. Because in certain corners of this state, the question is not whether the dead still exist. The question is whether something far more ancient, far more hateful, and far less human has learned how to imitate them. We'll start off with the real Exorcist house, an Election Brothers hospital in Belnor in St. Louis, Missouri. In 1949, a teenage boy known publicly through pseudonyms such as Robbie and Roland Doe became the center of one of the most disturbing religious cases in American history. The boy's family reported strange, scratching sounds, shaking furniture, objects moving without explanation, and marks appearing across his body. After medical and psychological evaluations reportedly failed to explain what was happening, Catholic priests became involved. The case eventually reached Belnor, a quiet St. Louis suburb where the ordinary walls of a family home became the setting for nightly prayers, violent convulsions, and desperate attempts to confront whatever the priests believed had attached itself to the boy. According to the diary kept by Father Raymond Bishop, the bed shook, holy water flew across rooms, scratches appeared in the shape of a cross, and the boy reacted to prayer with a voice that sounded nothing like the frightened teenager trapped beneath it. This was not Hollywood. This was the case that later helped inspire The Exorcist. The most horrifying sessions moved to Election Brothers Hospital in St. Louis. According to Bishop's account, the word hell appeared on the boy's chest. On another night, the image of a demonic face was said to appear on his leg. The priests reported screaming, cursing, speaking in tongues, and physical strength that forced several men to restrain him. One priest, Walter Halloran, suffered a broken nose during the struggle. Then, on Easter Monday, April 18, 1949, the final confrontation began inside the hospital. The priests prayed while the boy convulsed and a mocking voice allegedly spoke through him, refusing to leave. Shortly before midnight, another voice emerged, commanding the evil spirits to release the child. Moments later, the boy opened his eyes and said the presence was gone. Witnesses later reported hearing a tremendous sound in the hospital, like a gunshot exploding through the darkness. The boy recovered and lived an ordinary life, But the story left behind a sickening possibility. For weeks, something hateful may have been speaking through a human mouth, hiding behind a child's eyes, and waiting for the prayers to stop. Missouri State Penitentiary in Jefferson City, Missouri. Missouri State Penitentiary opened in 1836 along the banks of the Missouri River and remained in operation for 168 years. It was once described as the bloodiest 47 acres in America, and the nickname did not come from imagination alone. Thousands of inmates passed through its stone corridors. The prison endured overcrowding, disease, violence, riots, desperate escape attempts, and the suffocating pressure of human beings locked behind iron bars for years at a time. The gas chamber still stands as a cold reminder of the 40 executions carried out there between 1937 and 1989. Walk through the prison today, and the air feels heavy before anything unusual happens. The corridors stretch too far into the darkness. Rusted doors remain shut like clenched teeth. The cells hold the smell of damp stone and old metal, even in daylight. The place feels less like an abandoned building and more like a wounded animal that never stopped breathing. Ghost tour guides and visitors report that the prison is not empty. Some describe fingers brushing through their hair when no one is standing behind them. Others claim to see shadow figures slipping across hallways or faces staring silently from darkened cell windows. One recurring apparition has been called the Gray Lady, a woman reportedly seen walking the upper levels in a long dress with a high collar and bustle. Visitors entering the dungeon cells have described an overwhelming sensation of being crowded by invisible bodies, as though the prisoners are still standing shoulder to shoulder in the darkness. Others report phantom footsteps, distant voices, cell doors slamming, and screams echoing from sections of the prison where no living person is supposed to be. The most disturbing possibility is not that a single ghost haunts Missouri State Penitentiary. It is that the entire building has become a cage for memories that never died. Every hallway remembers pain. Every locked door remembers hands pounding against it. And when the sun goes down, the prison may still be counting its inmates. This one is freaky. The Lemp Mansion in St. Louis, Missouri. The Lemp Mansion looks elegant from the outside, but its beauty hides a history of grief that seems to have soaked into the walls. The wealthy Lemp family built a brewing empire in St. Louis, rising to extraordinary power and influence before Prohibition helped crush the business. Beneath the mansion, tunnels once connected the home to the brewery and to underground caverns used by the family. Inside the house were grand rooms, expensive fixtures, private vaults, servant quarters, and the evidence of a family that appeared to possess everything money could buy. But wealth did not protect them. In 1904, William J. Lemp Sr. died by suicide inside the mansion after the death of his beloved son, Frederick. In 1922, William J. Lemp Jr. ended his life inside the same house. In 1949, Charles Lemp also died by suicide within its walls. Elsa Lemp Wright, another family member, had died by suicide elsewhere in 1920. The mansion did not merely witness the fall of a dynasty. It became the final room for a family collapsing beneath a darkness it could not escape. After the mansion became a boarding house and later a restaurant and inn, the stories began to spread. Guests and workers reported phantom footsteps moving through empty corridors, cold spots that appeared without warning, knocking sounds inside the walls, and moans drifting through the house when no one was there. Glasses were said to slide or fly from shelves, doors reportedly locked and unlocked on their own. Some visitors claimed the piano played without anyone touching the keys. Others described seeing shadow figures near the staircase or feeling watched from the upper floors. The most unsettling legend is the story of the monkey-faced boy, an alleged hidden child whose ghost is said to peer from the attic or basement shadows. There is no reliable documentation proving that this child existed, but the legend has survived because the house makes the impossible feel believable. When the lights dim inside the Lemp mansion, the staircases seem longer, the rooms seem quieter, and somewhere above you, behind an attic door or inside a darkened hallway, something may still be listening for the footsteps of a family that never truly left.
Next, the haunted castle house in Brumley, Missouri. Deep in the isolated hills of Brumley stands a house that does not need a fictional story. To make a disturbing haunted castle house is more than a century old, surrounded by trees, open land, and the kind of silence that makes every creaking board sound deliberate. Behind the house is a graveyard elsewhere on the property. Previous owners identified a possible burial site. Current owners Steve and Judy Skinner later used ground-penetrating radar and cadaver dogs to investigate the area, and both reportedly indicated that something may be buried beneath the soil. But what lies underground remains uncertain. Human remains, animal burials, something older. The uncertainty is almost worse than an answer. The house now offers paranormal investigations, but the real horror begins with a simpler thought. People have lived and died inside this home. Something unexplained may be buried behind it, and no one can say with certainty what the ground is hiding. Steve Skinner told a local television station that he had seen multiple apparitions inside the house and heard voices calling the names of people who were not speaking. He described waking during the night to violent pounding on a door, only to find no one outside. Later, he said he felt his pillow press inward several inches as a man's voice whispered directly into his ear. Other reported experiences include unexplained voices, figures moving through rooms, and the sense that the house reacts when people enter certain areas.
The darkest question is whether these are ordinary ghosts or something pretending to be them. A human spirit might wander a hallway. A grieving soul might repeat the same footsteps night after night. But something demonic would behave differently. It would study the living. It would call them by name. It would speak in familiar voices. It would wait until the house became silent, until the lights were off, until someone was lying alone in bed with their eyes closed. Then it would lean close enough for them to feel its breath and remind them that the graveyard is not the only place where the dead are buried.
And finally, the Zombie Road in Wildwood, Missouri. By day, Rock Hollow Trail in Wildwood appears almost peaceful. The paved trail curves through dense woods along the Merrimack River Valley, crossing bridges and passing through a landscape shaped by railroad activity, quarry work, fog, shadows, and steep wooded terrain. But local residents know the trail by another name: Zombie Road. Before it became a public path, the route was connected to Lawler Ford Road, an old corridor used near railroad and quarry operations. The woods absorbed decades of stories: industrial accidents, a woman killed by a train, workers lost to dangerous machinery, and teenagers parking along the isolated road during the 1950s. Then the legends grew darker. People whispered about an escaped mental patient called Zombie, even though researchers have found no record proving that such a person or nearby asylum existed. Others spoke of children's voices, Confederate soldiers, old women wandering the path, and shadowy figures watching from behind the trees. Zombie Road became a place where history and folklore blurred together so completely that even skeptics admitted the setting felt wrong after sunset. Witnesses and paranormal investigators have reported pale apparitions, invisible hands grabbing at clothing, cold spots hanging in the air, distant cries, strange lights moving between the trees, and silent figures crossing the trail without making a sound. Some hikers claim they felt followed for long stretches of the path, only to turn around and find the road completely empty. Others describe shadow people standing just inside the tree line, never stepping fully into view, as though they understand exactly how far the daylight reaches. That may be the most terrifying detail about Zombie Road. The reported entities do not always chase people. They watch, they wait, they walk parallel to the trail from inside the woods, hidden behind branches matching the footsteps of the living. And when hikers finally leave, the forest becomes silent again. But silence does not mean the trail is empty. It may only mean that whatever followed them has decided to stop walking beside them, because it is now walking behind them. To close the documentary, Missouri's darkest places do not share a single kind of haunting. One carries the memory of an alleged demonic possession. One holds the suffering of thousands behind rusting prison doors. One is a mansion where grief destroyed a powerful family. One sits above ground that may still be hiding its dead, and one is a wooded trail where shadow figures wait just beyond the reach of the sun. These places are separated by miles, but the stories share one terrible pattern. People enter believing they are visiting history and leave wondering whether history noticed them. Because the most frightening thing about a haunted place is not hearing a voice, seeing a shadow, or feeling a hand touch your shoulder in the dark. It is realizing that something inside the darkness has been waiting for someone to listen. And now that you have heard its story, it may know that you are listening to. Thank you for your continued support. Please subscribe, like, and share. Your support helps motivate us to keep bringing you more true haunted stories, terrifying legends, and chilling paranormal mysteries.